Hello, what's going on guys? It's your boy AAR on 2 for 20 and I'm bringing you guys my GBA D-League Week 2 game versus Goldoa Dragon, coach of the New York Empoleons. Now, as you saw in our team builder yesterday, we are bringing a pretty weird team, but it's gonna work. I feel like we have dual rockers in Donphan and Bronzong. We have Hariyama that's gonna take advantage of Trick Room. We have a work up High Dragon with Taunt as well to beat things like Mega Venusaur and Milotic as well. We have Thundy Eye with Rain Dance, Thunderbolt, HP Water, and Nasty Plot, which does fairly well against this team that he brought besides like the Mega Venusaur. And we have a Facade Wish Mega King. So overall, some things I was very surprised to see. I was very surprised to see Mega Gardevoir and Bisharp come, but I definitely do see why they came, especially after the match. Everything else, I fairly expected, to be honest. A little bit weird in terms of how they were ran, how they were played, but overall, I think it was fairly expected. Now, in terms of leads, I decided that I was going to lead off with no matter what with his team, unless if he for some reason like didn't have Excadrill, I was going to lead off with Donphan. Mainers being his Mold Breaker Drill could be very hard for me to lead up against with Bronzong. Also things like Victini lead really well against me. So I decided I'm going to lead off with Donphan. And the one bad lead I could possibly have is if he leads off with Mega Venusaur somehow. For some reason. He shouldn't, personally in my opinion, but of course, he does lead off with Mega Venusaur, and it worked out very well for him, of course. I mean, obviously, he probably had a reason for leading off with it. I just didn't expect it to be a lead. I expected more of a Victini or even a Bisharp would have been a lead, to be honest. So, of course, I do need to switch out here into my Bronzong, as I do want Rocks up very badly, as it helps with things such as potential Sash, Bisharp, and Drill, also with Victini, and in general, his team's going to be doing a lot of switching, and Rocks help provide a lot of pressure for that. Not only that, but also because we do have a Bronzong lead, I could potentially set up a Trick Room on this Venusaur, even just sack myself off, and then just go into Hariyama and sweep. So, right off the bat, I am Leech Seeded, which is very unfortunate. He also potentially knock off me, or even have HP Fire, which could do a fair amount of damage. And he actually withdraws here, and he decides he's going to go into Ninian, his Milotic. So, if anything, that just helps with more of the idea of sacking Bronzong, potentially, in my opinion. As I figured that if we sack off Bronzong early on, especially versus one of his walls like Mega Venusaur or Milotic, it makes it very easy for me to potentially sub up with a Hariyama under Trick Room. And since we already got the Rocks up, it is already going to make that job a ton easier. As now I can just Toxic the Milotic and then set up a Trick Room next turn, and it'll be Toxic stalling itself on a timer. Not only that, but I will also have the Trick Room up, which is only going to make Hariyama's job easier, as I am letting myself get lower to the point where I can just become a sack after I get a Trick Room up, and then still have a few turns to mess around with Hariyama. So at this point, he's going to Scald me again, which is perfectly fine, as I'm going to put myself, I believe, near range of a Leech Seed, and the burn is going to secure that I believe die this turn, if I'm not mistaken. If not, then I definitely do die next turn anyway, which I know that the burn definitely does help me die sooner though, because as you can see, I'm at 6 HP, and he is going to get himself pretty much at full up until the toxic damage, of course. And I am going to die to burn this turn. So yeah, the burn did help me die sooner. I was fairly certain it did. So that's very nice for us, as we can now bring in Little China with a full turn of, the full set of Trick Room turns, my bad. And we could beat this Milotic fairly easily, and that's going to help a lot with later on. So I do get up my my sub here, as he actually goes for Toxic. It's going to help because now we're only taking Flame Orb damage instead of Toxic damage, which is very nice in terms of potentially sweeping with Little China. So we do have a sub now, and he doesn't have great switch-ins at all. I'm going to go for the close combat here, and I'm going to find out actually that he is a Rocky Helmet Milotic, which is very unfortunate for us, as we're going to take a fair amount of chip from this as well, and also the burn, of course. He's going to go for a recover here, which is perfectly fine. He's already on a very fast timer as it is, and I am just doing a decent amount of damage with close combat, and his Toxic turns are now putting him in range, potentially of Toxic just killing him off. Might even kill him off depending on my roll here, which is very nice. So right off the bat, we have eliminated the Milotic, which is very nice for us, as especially with Rocky Helmet, Milotic was one of his best ways around Kangaskhan this week. So now he only has potential for like V-Crave Victini and Low Kick Bisharp, which I actually sort of remembered as it came later on in the match, and I'll get into it when it comes into the match. Next here though, he does bring in his Mega Venusaur here. Probably unsure about the rest of my moveset, as I've only revealed close combat and sub. Going for the Facade here while I'm also still behind the sub is going to get off a decent amount of damage on the Venusaur. It is already putting it in a fair amount of range to just break it really easily. However, he does get the Synthesis off here, which is a little unfortunate as he's going to potentially even just burn stall us to death, but we are still getting off a decent amount of damage. He was probably just waiting for Trick Room turns to end so then he can outspeed us in Giga Drain, and of course that's what he does, and he is able to break our sub, obviously because we are -2 Spadef, so I wasn't really concerned about that. I sort of knew that was going to happen. But he gets himself up to full, and we get him fairly broken down with Facade, bring him to just above half HP. So I feel like that the Synthesis is inevitable here. So I'm actually going to switch out here instead of getting burn stalled, and I'm going to go into Medusa our Hydreigon. As we do have Taunt, of course, and we have Work Up, and we could potentially just set up with Hydreigon right away. And we take any hit possible he would go for. He goes for a Giga Drain here, that's fine. Literally, he would need to poison us with the Sludge Bomb if he has it, and then potentially just try and whittle us down with that. That's his only way to really beat us, I guess. And he'd also need to get a Leech Seed off. So I'm going to go for Dark Pulse here. I don't know why I didn't just go for Taunt, and that would have been very nice, but I guess in my head I didn't really want to reveal Taunt just yet, as it could potentially be very good later on. But then again, I mean, if I went for Taunt there, I could have worked up and forced a switch, and that could have been very nice. So I do go for the Taunt here, however, and that at least helps for right now, as he cannot Leech Seed me, which is very nice. But he gets still obviously go for Sludge Bomb and hope to poison me, and then whittle me down a little more that way. So I do actually switch out here, and I go into Mio the Kangaskhan. I figured that I could potentially just try and wish, maybe bait for a poison, and then just try and sweep him with Kang. However, he does get the crit here in pre-Mega. This is very dangerous as I can no longer wish versus the Venusaur. I would have been able to barely had he not gotten the crit. So that is very unfortunate, of course. I am, however, just going to go right back into Medusa, as I do take any hit fairly well. He is going to go into his Victini here. I did not necessarily want to mess around with this Victini yet, as if he had Dazzling Gleam, that could be very scary. So I actually hard swap here, and I go into Michelle and our Donphin, my bad. I figured that no matter what hit he wants to go for, I could potentially scout what he's going to do. Maybe if he's special or physical, he proves it. At the very least, I have U-turn, so he's at least somewhat physical. And I figured that I could play off of that. So here he goes into his Gardevoir. I figured I don't have good switch-ins at this point anymore now that I don't have Bronzong. So I'm going to actually just stay in and click Earthquake, as depending on what he goes for, I could potentially live, especially if he's not Specs, I could live like any hit. So he's actually going to go for the Energy Ball here. And as you can see, he is going to bring us down to 7 HP. So we are going to live. We're going to get off our Earthquake here. So that was a very, very solid play for us. Had he been Specs, he could have probably almost guaranteed killed at that point. And he has a little bit of HP left. He is perfectly in range of an Ice Shard here. And of course, we know that he is not a Leftovers, as he's not getting any HP back. So we have now killed off the Gardevoir. So that was very nice for us. He died to Rocks anyway, and he would need to get in a Drill versus me, which would have been a little hard to necessarily hazard remove. So I definitely get why he did that. So that was very smart on my opponent, of course. He does now go into Jafar, his Bisharp, and that is going to be a little bit scary for us, especially if he set up an SD. However, he just goes for the low kick, probably predicting that I maybe swap in a Kangaskhan, maybe predicting a knockoff in case I wanted to preserve Donphin and Wish Pass into it later. I do go into Jesus, our Thunderous Eye. I figured that main reason being is I could potentially try and play around this. He goes for the Sucker Punch here, as I actually go for Thunderbolt. I figured I could have Nasty Fly here, and that probably would have been the play. However, I figured if he knocked off here, that could have been very scary for me. So I do actually hard swap here, as had he gone for a Sucker Punch here, he potentially beat me 1v1. And I decided I'm just going to stack Little China. If he somehow just goes for Sucker Punch like he does, I just get some Bullet Punch chip, and that's at very least something versus this, as a little bit of damage always helps. Any little bit, but I forgot that Sucker Punch will still hit before my Bullet Punch anyway, so that was unfortunate. I still sacked, but it doesn't really matter in the long run, I guess. So here I go to Medusa. I figured that I could potentially try and get off a Work Up or a Dark Pulse versus this thing, as he is not going to be able to beat me 1v1 with Low Kick at this point. So he actually does bring in his Venusaurus here. And by the way, Low Kick would have done about 60%, so it would have still done a decent amount of damage, but it wouldn't have beat me 1v1. So luckily though, I do get the switch right, and I get the Work Up off, and I get myself to +1 special attack. Now I'm able to just taunt this Venusaur, and I'm able to, I believe, 2-hit KO out of this range. If not, it's very near 2-hit KO. He does predict, of course, and goes for the Sludge Bomb, knowing that I had taunt earlier. So we do, as you can see, we do still recover on this thing with Roost. It would have only been dangerous if he poisoned us. That could have been very scary. I do go for a Dark Pulse here, however, as you can see, we do a fair amount of damage. He's gonna go for the Sludge Bomb, of course, and I'm gonna be in range to the point where I'm gonna want to roost. Main reason being is that if he brings in, let's say, a Bisharp here and goes for a Sucker Punch, it's a fair amount of damage. It brings a Victini and he's going for Dazzling Gleam, that's very scary. Or even just like a Banded U-turn could be very scary. So I'm gonna roost up here while I have the time. I'm still gaining HP back versus this Venusaur as long as he doesn't poison me. So overall, I'm in a very safe position to just outstall this Venusaur. I can always taunt if I need to, and I can just beat this Venusaur very, very easily. So I'm going to go for a Roost here. I figured that if he recovers here, that's fine. I can always taunt him next turn as long as he doesn't get up Leech Seeds. That's a scarier thing for me in my opinion, as Leech Seeds would get off residual damage constantly. He is actually going to go for the Sludge Bomb here, probably predicting that I go for the taunt, which is actually really solid for us because now I can just kill off the Mega Venusaur with a Dark Pulse anyway, and now down goes the Mega Venusaur. So while I probably should have taunted there, it was very, very lucky for us that he predicted I would go for the taunt, and we're now in a very, very solid position in terms of our HP and the fact that we are +1. We're able to get on some nice damage now. So he does bring in Victini here. Of course, I have no switch-ins, and I figured that regardless, maybe he over-predicts and I just go for Dark Pulse. So he does go for the U-turn, of course. If he U-turns into Drill or Bisharp, at this point they both take a ton of damage to a +1 Dark Pulse. So he does decide he's going to go sack his Bisharp at this point. I believe it's a guaranteed sack at this point, especially after Rocks. I think if Rocks weren't up, it would have been a maybe, but with Rocks up, it was a guaranteed kill at that point. So all he has left at this point is his Excadrill, which could very well be Scarf, Mold Breaker, Earthquake, and that could be very scary for us, and Victini. And Victini, I later find out was choice banded. Bird was 100% right on that, being banded Victini. So at this point, I just sack Hydra to U-turn. I really didn't have any other options, I guess. And, I mean, Hydra doesn't really do that much at this point in the game anyway. I can sort of win with Kang plus Thundy. So, of course, he does U-turn again, leaving us Victini pretty much dead. And he does go into Drill right here. So, at this point in the game, I sort of feel like that I can definitely beat this thing with Earthquake. And I'm going to be Scout if he is going to potentially be like a Banded Drill or like SD or Scarf, because if he's not like a Life Orb, in fact, actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure Life Orb has a roll to kill if he's like Life Orb Adamant. If he's Banded, he definitely kills. So I guess it depends on his item here. Had he been Scarfed anyway, I guarantee live the hit, and I can kill him off with Earthquake anyway. And also, if he Scarfed himself into Earthquake, which is his only move, if he crit, then he could have killed me, but otherwise he wouldn't have had any chance unless he flinched me with Iron Head to Scarf. Then I could have brought in my Thundurus, and then I get a nasty plotted up, and then won the game. So, of course, we do kill off the Drill. I don't think the crit mattered unless if it crit the first one. I'm not sure if that's how it works or not, but I'm fairly certain the crit was for the second hit, which means we were fine. So we did, of course, beat that. And now he just has Victini left, and of course, he's at 1 HP. If he's Scarf, then depending on what he locked himself into, he could maybe win, depending on rolls. Or actually, no, because I remember, from the HP that Thundy is at, we do take a Scarf Zen Headbutt just barely. If he's Adamant Scarf, he needs to get like a max roll to kill us off. And obviously, you know, I mean, flinch is a thing. So, luckily though, he is actually going to be banded, so we don't even need to risk anything. And we are going to take Week 2 versus Goldoa Dragon, coach of the New York Empoleons. We're going to win on a narrow 1-0. Shout out to Thundurus. It's a Mon I was very, very doubtful at the beginning of the season. I know I mentioned my draft analysis. I was considering maybe dropping it for Gothitelle and then picking up Magneton over Bronzong. I actually, speaking of transactions, though, I'll cover those, I guess, while I'm here. I was going to make a separate video, but I'm already talking about them here. And instead of uploading 3 vids tomorrow, I might as well just cover it here. So, spoiler to you guys, I am actually going to be dropping Sylveon and Aerodactyl for Clefable and Archeops, and I'm going to be giving Archeops my Zeke Crystal. Thank Bird, he sort of pointed out to me that Clefable was left because Turbo actually dropped it last week, if you didn't know. Of course, you guys can cover, you guys should definitely still watch Transactions, as it's going to be covered by Stromp, you know, best analyst this week. And there's obviously other transactions this week that I will not spoil for the sake of not spoiling it, so you guys can go watch. I gave a little more reasons to Stromp as well in terms of the transactions, but I figured I'd cover them here just because I was talking about trades anyway. So that does mean, of course, I definitely am not going to be dropping Thundy for Goth, because if I drop Thundy for Goth, it would be really weird in terms of Z points, because I wouldn't really have anything to Z left, I guess, or at least anything worth Zing. and 2 also because I would be losing out my electric type, and I would be depending 100% upon Decidueye to break my bulky waters, and I guess like Toxic from Clefable and Koth, and Volcanion I guess to wall them out, and maybe if I gave that thing Z, I could go for like Z Solar Beam. But point is, my answers against water types would be very, very awful. So I'm obviously not going to be going for the Goth pickup anymore. Also, my team would be fairly knockoff weak with Bronzong and Goth both being knockoff bait. And I don't exactly have a ton of great Dark Resist. I mean, I have Hariyama and I have Hydreigon and Clefable, so actually I have better Dark Resist now. But point being though is I am definitely not making any plans to drop Thundurus anymore. I sort of confirmed after this game as well, it was only more reason to keep it because I'm sort of getting the hang of Thundurus finally. So yeah, of course, shoutouts to Bird. His team was phenomenal this week. Check out Bird's Tom Z link in the description below because Bird likes not being linked. So yeah, massive shoutouts to Bird though. I really appreciate his help this week. Next week we take on Regulator, coach of the Los Angeles Clefables. You guys should check that out. We are bringing a surprise versus Greg. It's going to be a fun time for all. And I will see you guys next week with that game. Peace out.